Hey guys, it is Shadowswum, and I'm here to present to you guys the free week champion rotation for week 4 of the 2014 preseason. This week we've got Annie, Ashe, Morgana, Nunu, Sona, Trundle, Orianna, Volibear, Sejuani, and Draven. Let's jump into things, shall we? As usual, if you guys are familiar with how I've been doing this, going to go over just the kind of the playstyle of the champion, whether they're AP or AD, the combos you can expect, the builds you can expect, and how many bot games I feel, bot games I personally feel you should play to understand the champion's full rotation, their kit, and how they synergize with other champions. And again, you can get the understanding of them without just being a complete noob and being labeled as an idiot and being told to uninstall. So let's jump into things with Annie, shall we? Her passive, after casting 4 spells, Annie's next offensive spell will stun the target for 1.75 seconds. That's always a good thing, and you can get the stacks of that by casting stuff such as Disintegrate or even Molten Shield. We'll talk about all these things in a second. So Disintegrate. Annie hurls a mana-infused fireball, dealing damage and refining the mana cost if it destroys the target. That's a simple point-and-click ability. Not much else to it. All of her abilities scale off of AP, and they scale rather well at that. So that's always good. It's like Gangplank's Parlay, but better because it's a full mana refund instead of half. Next is Incinerate. Annie casts a blazing cone of fire, dealing damage to all enemies in the area. Unlike some other conal attacks, such as Volley from Ashe, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, it damages everything in that cone instead of just the first targets it hits. So that's good. Next, it's Molten Shield. Increases Annie's armor and magic resistance and damages enemies who hit Annie with basic attacks. It's her defensive ball curl. Plain and simple. And last but not least, we all hate it or love it, depending on which side of the field you play on with her. Annie summons her or wills her bear Tibbers to life, dealing damage to units in an area. Tibbers can attack and also burns enemies that stand near him. So, the general idea for Annie is burst somebody down, move on to the next target. Now, as I said, you can actually go ahead and get the stacks of Pyromania, your passive. You can get that off of Molten Shield, but the stun effect cannot trigger from Molten Shield being procced. Meaning, say you have Molten Shield procced, and somebody's attacking you with your 5th stack of Pyromania, they still cannot be stunned. You have to actually hit them with Incinerate, Disintegrate, or Summon Tibbers. So that's always good. You don't waste that charge on just needless, minor damage. Now, for how well she scales with AP, there's a 70% AP scaling with Disintegrate, 75% with Incinerate, 20% with the Damage Reflect on Molten Shield, and Tibbers has 2 separate scalings. 70% scaling with the initial summon when you summon him out and you get the nice little AoE, and then 20% of the AP you have goes into his aura that burns enemies around him. So that's always good. Now the general item build on Annie would be a Rabadon's Death Cap, a Zanya's Hourglass. You might also see a Deathfire Grasp. Those are all general items you may see on Annie. Certainly a Rabadon's Death Cap, and most likely a Zanya's as well. And then it kind of differs from there, depending on the situation. I've seen people go ahead and get Rod of Ages and double dip with a Tear of the Goddess build onto an Archangel. So it all depends on your situation and how well you feel you can play Annie. For her, I would say maybe 2 to 3 bot games, maximum of 3, to just understand how effective your Disintegrate is at getting those last hits, the range of it, the range of your Incinerate, and how well your Tibbers really, scales with your AP and how to kind of control him. Just like other ults such as Shaco's Hallucinate, you control it with your alt, alt and right click to control where your Tibbers goes. Otherwise, he's just going to go, auto attack and follow you. So again, 2, if not at least 3 bot games to understand how to fully play her. Next we have Ashe, who, her passive, its focus, While out of combat, Ashe gains stacks of focus. When Ashe has 100 stacks of focus, her next basic attack will critically strike. That's that's a damn good passive, I'm not gonna lie. Now, generally, it actually scales off of your percent to crit, but since you don't usually have crit percentage early level, like level 1 to like 3 or 4, they actually kind of give you a nice little buffer of, I believe it's 6 stacks or 3 to 6 stacks of focus while out of combat, until you get that crit percentage, and then it scales off of the base focus plus the percent to crit you actually have. So that's good until you reach that 100 mark. You can actually be at 99 stacks, but not have that guaranteed crit, and the only way to get that guaranteed crit is to reach that 100th stack. So just keep that in mind. Next is Frost Shot. While active, each of Ashe's basic attacks will slow her target. This drains mana with each attack. It's both an auto cast as well as a active cast, meaning you can either point click or you can right click to have it just auto cast on every attack. If you go ahead and just point click, you have to do that every attack. So most people actually try and orb walk. They'll go ahead and click on it, activate it just as you would with other abilities such as Annie's Disintegrate, for instance. You'll point click, attack, with something else, point click again, etc., etc., to keep the slow active and not drain as much mana as you usually would. Next we have Volley. Ashe fires 7 arrows in a cone for increased damage. Volley also applies Ashe's current level of Frost Shot. So if you have level 1 Frost Shot, the slow percentage also applies to your Volley. It doesn't drain extra mana regardless of if you have Frost Shot active or not, but it does drain a hefty amount of mana, but it has a decently long cooldown at early levels, so it won't be as huge of an issue. And it scales rather well with AD. I believe it's 100% of your AD it scales with, and that just tells you flat out she's an AD champion. Next, it's her Hawk Shot, which is a double dip ability, meaning it has a passive and an active. Each time Ashe kills a unit, she gains some extra gold. Ashe can activate to send her Hawk Spirit on a scouting mission. Similar to Quinn's W, except it actually lasts a little longer, and you dictate on exactly the direction it goes, instead of a giant AoE. Now the Hawk Shot, the gold increase, or the gold you get per kill, increases with the level of Hawk Shot, from 1 gold at level 1 to 5 gold at level 5 of Hawk Shot. And that does, it does also stack with stuff like an Avarice Blade. So you can double dip with that as well and just get immense amounts of gold really, really easily, and it's just silly. And you also get gold, the extra gold if you get that last hit on Dragon, for instance. So that's good. And last but not least is Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Ashe fires a missile of ice in a straight line. If the arrow collides with an enemy champion, it deals damage and stuns the champion for up to 3.5 seconds based on how far the arrow has traveled. In addition, surrounding enemy units take damage and are slowed. This is the quintessential skill shot. There's no way to change its pathing or anything like that. It's you point, you click, it goes. You can literally cast it from your fountain all the way to the enemy's fountain and it not hit anybody if the line's off just a little bit. It's easily dodged, but if you hit that perfect crystal arrow at the right time, it can really mess up with your, mess your opponents up with their ults and, how they wanted to set stuff up. With that being said, it scales off of AP, but I'll show you how much AP it scales with now. So as I said, Volley scales with 100% of your AD, and Crystal Arrow scales with 100% of your AP. However, due to Crystal Arrow's long cooldown, you generally do not want to have AP at all. If you do, you're just going to be laughed at unless you're trying to play support Ashe, which I do not recommend. Now, Volley, as I said, it has a ridiculously long cooldown, early ranks. But once you reach level 5 of Volley, the cooldown's 4 seconds. It's easily spammable and you can just go by casting it, but it does just an absurd amount of damage, so you're not even going to feel it that much. It's always beneficial to build Ashe as AD. I would recommend, well, I would actually say you would generally see stuff like Infinity Edge, Bloodthirster, maybe I don't know why people would actually get this, but a Zephyr. I've actually seen that on people. And I don't know why, but I've seen people get stuff like a Trinity Force as well, which I actually laugh at. But, Infinity Edge and Bloodthirster are just standard items on her. And then you can, dictate on what you want to get from there. You can go for a Black Cleaver, you can go for a Blade of the Rune King. It all depends on the situation and what it calls for. Also, a Phantom Dancer never goes amiss on her either. So that's Ashe in a nutshell. She has no combo because she only has one spell other than her arrow that actually does damage. So you're just going to be seeing her toggle her Frost Shot on and off and volley as much as she possibly can for the maximum amount of damage. Now, unlike Annie's Incinerate, volley only damages one target per arrow. People can get it by multiple arrows, but say, they're being blocked by creeps, for instance, or minions rather, the minions actually take the damage if they're even the slightest bit in front of the champion. So be wary of how you actually angle volley. Next we've got Morgana. Her passive, Soul Siphon. Morgana has Spell Vamp, healing herself whenever she deals damage with her spells. They did actually change Morgana recently, and we'll just go into her spells now. Her Q, which is Dark Binding, Morgana releases a sphere of dark magic. Upon contact with an enemy unit, the sphere will deal damage and force the unit to the ground for a period of time. Now it actually does more damage, I believe, the lower health people are. I could be mistaken, we'll look over that in a minute. She scales rather well with AP. You won't be seeing her build AD at all. If she is, then she's trolling. Plain and simple. Next is Tormented Soil. Inflicts an area of infects an area with desecrated soil, causing enemy units who stand on it or on the location to take continual damage. Sorry, I just can't speak tonight. That's a nice little AoE on the ground. It's like the Miasma from Cassiopeia, except it stays a standard radius. It doesn't actually grow over time. Next we have Black Shield. Places a protective barrier around an allied champion, absorbing magical damage and it disables until penetrated or the shield dissipates. This is good for absorbing stuff like an ultimate or a stun, stuff like that. You can save allies with it, or you can even save yourself, depending on what's about to happen. It doesn't absorb true damage because that goes through everything that I know of except for Poppy's ult and Kale's ult. But other than that, it absorbs a lot of spell damage and scales off of AP as well and how much it absorbs. And last but not least, we have Soul Shackles. Latches chains of energy onto nearby enemy champions, dealing initial damage to them and slowing their movement speed, and then echoing the pain a few seconds later, and then stunning them if they remain close to Morgana. Again, scales rather well with AP. So, Dark Binding scales with 90% of your AP, so just easy math here, if you have 100 AP, it gets 90 extra damage. And the stun root goes up over time, or the duration. Again, I can't talk tonight, forgive me. Next we have Tormented Soil, which that's actually based off of the missing health. And it scales off of 22% to 33% of your AP depending on how much health they have versus what they're missing. The lower health they are, the more health it does, or the more damage it does. Black Shield scales with 70% of your AP, and Soul Shackles, as with Tibbers, has two different scalings. Both are 70%, however, instead of two different scalings. So, nice, well-rounded numbers, except for Tormented Soil. General items you'd see on Morgana would be, again, a Rabadon's Death Cap, Azania's. You wouldn't also be surprised to see a Crystal Scepter. I know I've seen that as well. Let's see, what else? Rod of Ages goes good with her. And I know I'm forgetting something else. Oh, an Abyssal Scepter. That always goes good with Morgana as well, due to just the increase in AP, magic resist, and it shreds magic resist from your enemies as well. So you can't go amiss with that. Now with both Morgana and with Ashe, I would say at least 2 to 3 bot games, if not 4 for Morgana, because of, you have to fully understand how to, set up that combo of Q, then W, then your ult. Or you might try an ult and Q, then W. Riot changed Morgana to where her combo is generally going to be Q into W, because W does more damage based upon the missing health the enemy champion or enemy unit has. That's her basic combo, and yeah, as I said, Ashe doesn't really have a basic combo. Next up, it's Nunu. His passive, Visionary. Nunu can cast a spell for free after 5 attacks. Pretty standard. 5 attacks, go ahead and get a free spell. Next is Consume. Nunu commands the Yeti to take a bite out of a target minion or monster, dealing heavy damage to it and healing himself. This skill is off of AP, as does Ice Blast and Absolute Zero, but we'll get into how Nunu is generally played and how he's built in a few minutes. Next we have Blood Boil. Nunu invigorates himself and an allied unit, heating their blood, increasing their movement and attack speed. That has a timed duration, and it does not scale off of AP for obvious reasons. Next we have Ice Blast. Nunu launches a ball of ice at an enemy unit, dealing damage and temporarily slowing their movement speed and attack speed. And last but not least, it's Absolute Zero. Nunu begins to sap the heat, slowing all nearby enemies. When the spell ends, he deals massive damage to all enemies caught in the area. This spell goes very, very well combined with stuff like in a Mumu ult, for instance. You Mumu ult into a Nunu ult, and oh look, massive damage. Now, you'll generally see Nunu either played as support or in the jungle. I've yet to see a Nunu played well in the jungle. I've always seen Nunu played very, very well as a support. And supports generally don't have a rotation, and you're more there to just be a buff. That being said, however, if you're going jungle Nunu, you're obviously going to get Consume and Ice Blast as well as Blood Boil. You want Blood Boil more so to get Visionary a lot quicker. Now, Consume. It does a big chunk of damage, as you see here, it's 75% of your AP, and it has different effects depending on what you consume. If you consume Reptile, meaning any of the small lizards, your attacks and spells deal an additional 1% of your maximum health as magic damage. And if you consume Golems, you have 10% increased size and maximum health. Wolves or Wraiths killing a unit grants 15% movement speed for 3 seconds. Don't know why they have it worded like this. Guess that was kind of a typo. That should be an extra line. But yeah, so the amount of healing is increased by your AP, but the amount of damage is not, because it's true damage. Blood Boil, as I said, it doesn't scale. Ice Blast, it scales with 100% of your AP. An Absolute Zero, it scales with 250% of your AP. So meaning if you're supporting Nunu and you have 100 AP, you're going to be hitting like a truck with Absolute Zero, and people are just going to hate you for it. But again, if you're playing support Nunu, you're getting Blood Boil and Ice Blast more often than not, and you're Ice Blasting to just slow down somebody so your ADC can go ahead and get the kill. Or just harass. For him, depending on which way you want to go, do you want to go the support or the jungle? For jungle, I would recommend at least 4 bot games. For support, 1, maybe 2, because it's not hard to understand how the support side of Nunu works. For jungle, it's a lot tougher, so you want that extra little bit of experience under your belt with him. If you're going as jungle, Hunter's Machete is how you start off, and I don't know how it goes off from there. And support, you get support items. There's no other thing to say. You might deviate a little bit and get a Rabadon's Death Cap if your team is doing just extraordinarily well. And you might get an Abyssal Scepter to just help your allies as well. So that way the AP, if there's an AP mid, they don't have to get it, or if there's an AP top, they don't have to get it. Same thing if you're jungle as well. You can go ahead and get that Abyssal Scepter to just help in general. It also helps your ultimate in major ways. But yeah, depending on how you're going, if you're playing support, go ahead and play maybe 2 bot games, if not just one's all you need. And if you're jungling, then 4, maybe 5, to just understand exactly how Nunu's jungle pattern works, because it's different from everybody else's jungle pattern. Next we have Sona. Her passive is Power Chord. After casting 3 spells, Sona's next attack deals bonus magic damage, in addition to a bonus effect depending on what song Sona is currently playing. So, we have Hymn of Valor. Sona plays the Hymn of Valor, granting nearby allied champions the bonus AD as well as AP. Additionally, casting this ability sends out bolts of sound, dealing magic damage to the nearest 2 enemy champions or monsters. It will prioritize champions, I believe, but it might be closest. I'm not sure if I actually try to prioritize champions. So be wary of that. Next we have Aria of Perseverance. Sona plays the Aria of Perseverance, granting nearby allied champions bonus armor and magic resist. Additionally, casting the ability sends out healing melodies, healing Sona and a nearby wounded ally. Next is Song of Clarity, Clarity. I don't know why that looked different to me. Sona plays the Song of Clarity, granting nearby allied champions bonus movement speed. Additionally, casting this ability energizes nearby allies with a burst of speed. And last but not least, it's Crescendo. Sona plays her ultimate chord, forcing enemy champions to dance and dealing magic damage to them. Before it actually would stun them, but now they actually dance, so it's kind of hilarious. And she's played as support. You generally won't see her played as anything else unless you're doing, an ARAM. But, that being said, there is a little combo you can actually do. It's just spamming Song of Clarity and Hymn of Valor to just get the maximum amount of damage you possibly can, and staying alive and having that movement speed. It really depends on the situation. But the Hymn of the Power Chord, it has different, as I said earlier, depending on which spell that Sona has active, that depends on what power chord she plays. So if she's got Hymn of Valor, it's Power Chord Staccato, deals double Power Chord damage. If it's Aria of Perseverance, she plays Power Chord Diminuendo, reduces an enemy's total damage output by 20% for 3 seconds. And if it's Clarity, she gets Power Chord Tempo, slows an enemy by 40% plus 4% of her AP for 2 seconds. Now, her Hymn of Valor, the activation damage scales with half of her AP, and the persistent aura is a flat. The activation of Perseverance, it's 25% of her AP, and the aura, it's flat on how much armor and magic resist people gain. And the activation of Clarity is a scaling of 4% of her total AP. Meaning if she has, say she has 100 AP, that's, or 100 AP rather, not HP. If she has 100 AP, that brings a, level 5 Clarity to 16%. So that's pretty good. And then the persistent aura is 20 bonus movement speed, so that's pretty damn good as well. And then Crescendo scales with half of your AP. Again, because she's a support, we don't need to really go into, any sort of combo with her. And for her, I would recommend at least 2 to 3 bot games to understand exactly how, Power Chord Diminuendo and Tempo and Staccato work, and just how all of her abilities kind of, personify her as a muse, and just why she's so musical in her ways. Her general items would be support items. You guys know what those are. I don't I don't have the mental capability right now to remember those. So moving on. Next we have Trundle, whose passive is King's Tribute. When an enemy unit dies near Trundle, he heals for a % of its maximum health. That's not a bad passive at all. Next we have Chomp. Trundle bites his opponent, dealing damage, briefly slowing and sapping some of their attack damage. And that scales off of AD. That's pretty good. Next we got Frozen Domain. Trundle turns the target location into his domain, gaining attack speed, movement speed, and increased healing from all sources while on it. And that scales with a Spirit Visage. So that's always good, and that increases the healing he gets from King's Tribute. Next we have Pillar of Ice. Trundle creates an ice pillar at the target location, becoming impassable terrain and slowing all nearby enemy units. As it says on the tin, it's a giant pillar. It's easy to see. If you can't see it, then you're blind. Let me put it that way. Last but not least, we have Subjugate. Trundle immediately steals a % of his target's health, armor, and magic resist. Over the next 4 seconds, the amounts of health, armor, and magic resist stolen is doubled. And I believe that scales off of AP. But let's see here. Chomp scales off of scaling AP or AD. So initially it's 80% of your AD all the way up to 120% of your AD, depending on what level Chomp is. Then Subjugate, it scales with 2% of your AP. So again, nice round number, 100 AP. It does 30% of an enemy's maximum health, and steals up to 40% of their armor and magic resist. That's rough. But generally the item build on him would be stuff Bruiser would get, such as a Warmog's Sunfire Cape, Randuin's Omen. You might see AD item in there such as an Infinity Edge or Bloodthirster. Bloodthirster would be more common, or a Ravenous Hydra as well. I'm not entirely sure of the combo with Trundle. I'm assuming it's going to be an Ice Pillar with Frozen Domain, and then Subjugate with Chomp. We can assume that, and we can't really call for his passive because it's a heal. Can't do much about that other than try and give him Grievous Wounds to cut that in half. But he's generally going to be playing the jungle. I would say for him, at least 3 bot games to understand how his pillar works, and how Frozen Domain really works, and how much damage Subjugate will do depending on who you target and what items they have, etc. So be wary of that, and again, at least 3 to 4 bot games with him. Next we have Orianna. Her passive, Clockwork Wind-Up. Orianna's auto attacks deal additional magic damage. This damage increases the more Orianna attacks the same target. That scales off of AP. She scales off of AP, so expect standard AP items on her, such as Rabadon's Deathcap, Zanya's, Rod of Ages, Crystal Scepter, etc. And it can vary depending on your situation, but those are standard items, the Rabadon's and Zanya's more so than anything else. Next we have Command Attack. Orianna commands her ball to fire towards a target location, dealing magic damage to targets along the way, deals less damage to subsequent targets. Her ball remains at the location afterwards. Now, she can actually place her ball wherever she wants with that, and she can go upwards, I believe it's 750 units away before it actually snaps back to her. There's an indicator you see with the... you can actually see these little arrows over here that actually kind of indicate how far away she is from the ball. Green will be she's close enough, and red it's like danger, it's going to come back to you any second if you go any further. Next we have Command Dissonance. Orianna commands the ball to release a pulse of energy, dealing magic damage around it. This leaves a field behind that speeds up allied champions and slows enemies. So, plain and simple. And that's comboed really well together with Command Attack. Next, we have Command Protect, which actually Dissonance is comboed very well with as well. Command Protect. When a commands her ball to attach to an allied champion, shielding them and dealing magic damage to any enemies it passes through on the way. Additionally, the ball grants additional armor and magic resist to champion it is attached to. Meaning if the ball is attached to you, it's just right there by your side because you didn't throw it anywhere yet, you actually gain additional magic resist and armor while it's there. The second it's gone, not near you or on an allied champion, you don't get that bonus, and neither do your allied champions. And last but not least, we have Command Shockwave. Oriana commands her ball to unleash a shockwave, dealing magic damage and launching nearby enemies towards the ball after a short delay. Now, the general combo would be Command Protect into Shockwave, into Dissonance, into Attack, or any sort of variation of that, meaning might be Protect into Dissonance into Shockwave, or Attack into Protect into Dissonance into Shockwave. It's generally going to be Protect into Shockwave because you'll put Protect on the tank who's going to go in, absorb the brunt of the damage, and be just right there in the center. And Shockwave has a very generous radius, so you can actually pop it the second that tank gets in there to just be that beef and absorb all the damage. And her scaling with AP Command Attack, it's half of your AP. For Dissonance, the damage is 70% of your AP. For Protect, the shield, it's 40% of, or the active while it's traveling and hitting enemies, it does 40% of your AP, and the shield gets 30% of your AP. Shockwave gets 70% of your AP. And as I said, it's got a very generous radius, so don't be scared to pop it. Even if you think they're kind of out of that range, you can actually just hover over the ability and it'll show you where the ball is and how big the radius is versus the ball, the location of the ball. So you can go ahead and do that. Again, the general combo is going to vary depending on the situation. The more common one is Protect into Shockwave into Dissonance and then Attack. Or Attack into Dissonance into Shockwave into Protect. Any sort of variation of that is also, generally standard. For her, I would say at least 3 bot games to, again, understand how, all of her abilities work, how Command Attack works, Dissonance, Protect, and Shockwave. Shockwave more so than anything else because it has a delay. Now, it has a delay after you go ahead and use Attack or Protect. It has a short delay before you can actually activate Shockwave, so you want to just be able to get that timing correct. So that's why I'm saying, a couple of bot games to just understand how it actually works and where that delay is. Other than that, not much else to say on her. Next up we have Volibear. His passive is Chosen of the Storm. Volibear heals rapidly for a few seconds when his health drops below a critical level. I believe it's like 30% or 20%. And he heals very, very majorly. Then we have Rolling Thunder. Volibear drops to all fours and runs faster. This bonus speed increases when chasing enemy champions. The first enemy he attacks is thrown backwards over Volibear. And the damage scales with AP rather. Next we have Frenzy. Volibear's repeated attacks grant him additional attack speed. Once Volibear has repeatedly attacked 3 times, he can perform a vicious bite on his target, which deals increased damage based on the target's missing health. Next we have Majestic Roar. Volibear lets out a powerful roar that damages and slows enemies. Minions and monsters are feared as well. Last but not least, we have Thunderclaws. Volibear channels the power of the storm, causing his attacks to blast targets with lightning that bounces to other nearby enemies. And that damage scales with AP as well, I believe. Let's actually see. It actually doesn't say. Looks like it's a flat damage with that. Frenzy, it's a minimum of 260 plus 15% of their missing health. that it actually does. Majestic Roar scales with 60% of your AP, and Thundering Claws scales with 30% of your AP. Generally, however, you would not be building just straight up AP. You'll actually be building more of a bruiser type, where you'll be getting a lot of health, a lot of armor, and magic resist, and thinking of damage afterwards. That'll be the second thought. You'll be getting stuff like a Sunfire Cape, you'll be getting a Randuin's Omen, Warmogs. All of these things are pretty standard on Volibear, and then you think about damage afterwards. The general combo for Volibear would be Rolling Thunder into Majestic Roar, or Rolling Thunder with Thunderclaws activated, and then Majestic Roar and just, Wail and Frenzy when you possibly can when they're low on health. That's the general combo. You'll generally see Volibear go in with Rolling Thunder first, and then either Majestic Roar or pop Thundering Claws. Majestic Roar more likely because of the slow effect. And that's really it for his combo. Again, you'll be seeing him mostly bruiser, and he'll be going top more often. He's generally not played in the jungle that often anymore. He's more of a top champion now. But he still can be played in the jungle. I would say if you're going to play in the jungle, go ahead and play, maybe 4 or 5 bot games to understand again how his jungle pattern works. If you're playing in top, 2, maybe 3, again, just kind of understand how his abilities can chain together. Other than that, let's move on to Sejuani. Sejuani's passive, Frost. Damaging an enemy with an ability or basic attack grants Sejuani bonus armor and reduces movement speed slowing effects on her. Next we have Arctic Assault. Charges forward, dealing magic damage and knocking enemies into the air. The charge stops after knocking an enemy champion into the air, or you reach a certain range. Next we have Flail of the Northern Winds. Sejuani's next basic attack deals bonus magic damage to the target and enemies near it. She then spends her flail, dealing magic damage to nearby enemies. I was about to say all nearby enemies, but it's only close, in a small little radius around her. Next we have Permafrost. Abilities and basic attacks apply frost to enemies. Activating Permafrost damages and slows all nearby enemies with frost. And last but not least, we have Glacial Prison. Sejuani throws her True Ice Bola into in a line. If the bola hits an enemy champion, it shatters, stunning the target and nearby enemies. If the bola reaches its maximum range, it shatters and slows nearby enemies. So ideally, you want to go ahead and hit Glacial Prison first, or Arctic Assault first, and then Glacial Prison on top of them with Flail of the Northern Winds and Permafrost. That's the general combo with Sejuani right there. Sejuani does scale rather decently with AP, but you're not going to be seeing that much AP on her, if any. I mean, you'll be seeing certain items with AP, but not a focus on it. She's more of those, beefy junglers. Arctic Assault, however, does scale with 40% AP. Flail of the Northern Winds scales with 30% of your AP, and then the Flail Swinging is 60% of your AP. Permafrost, it's half of your AP, and Glacial Prison is 80% of your AP. And the stun duration on Glacial Prison also increases with each rank. The slow duration of Permafrost increases with each rank as well. And it's generally that. Again, you'll be seeing standard beef items on her. You'll be seeing a Randuin's Omen, a Warmogs. You might be seeing, again, some AP items. An Abyssal Scepter doesn't go amiss on her for obvious reasons. It increases her damage output, and it allows her, AP allies to deal more damage, because she's going to be in the fray regardless. And she's generally played in the jungle. I would say maybe at least 3 to 4 bot games with her, again, to understand how the flail works, etc. And last but not least, we have Draven. His passive, League of Draven. Draven gains fans' adoration when he catches his spinning axe or kills a minion or monster. Killing enemy champions grants Draven bonus gold based on how much adoration he has. Next is Spinning Axe. Draven's next basic attack will deal bonus physical damage. This axe will ricochet off his target high up into the air. If Draven catches it, he automatically readies another Spinning Axe. Draven can have up to 2 Spinning Axes at once. Next we have Blood Rush. Draven gains increased movement speed and attack speed. The movement speed bonus decreases rapidly over its duration. Catching a Spinning Axe will refresh the cooldown on Blood Rush. Then we have Stand Aside. Draven throws his axes, dealing physical damage to targets hit, and throwing them aside, targets hit are slowed. Then last but not least we have Whirling Death. Draven hurls 2 massive axes to deal physical damage to each enemy or to each unit hit or each unit struck. Whirling Death slowly reverses direction and returns to Draven after striking an enemy champion. Draven may also reactivate the ability while the axes are in flight to cause it to return early. Deals less damage for each unit hit and resets when the axes reverse direction. So it's a double-edged skill shot. You can actually, this is the only skill shot that I know of where you can actually change how it's going to move. Meaning, say you are at your fountain, you go ahead and cast it towards, the enemy fountain, it's going to go in a straight line, and then you teleport, say, bottom, for instance, or you're running top, that's going to skew the path of your axes on the way back to you. It's the only skill shot in the game that I know of that actually does that. And all of his abilities, except for Blood Rush, for obvious reasons, scale with AD. So, Adoration, Draven gains 1 stack of Adoration based upon, if he catches an axe or if he gets a kill on a monster or minion, and each stack of Adoration is 2 bonus gold per stack. So again, easy math, 10 stacks, that's 20 bonus gold. And every time you kill a champion, you use all your stacks of Adoration. Spinning Axes deals a set amount of damage and scales with your AD up to 85% of your AD. Blood Rush, as we said, it doesn't scale off of AD, but it does increase your movement and attack speed, going up per rank from 40% movement speed all the way up to 60, and from 20% attack speed all the way up to 40. Next we have Stand Aside, that does gets bonus half of your bonus AD. And your Whirling Death, your Whirling Death gets 100% of your bonus AD. So bear that in mind. That's bonus AD, not total AD. Your Spinning Axe is the only that's total. So again, be wary of that, and Stand Aside its only bonus as well. And for him, I would recommend minimum of at least 3 bot games to understand how he fully works as well. Because let's be honest, you don't want to go into a game where people are just like, oh, you're a noob because you can't catch axes, you can't do anything. You don't want to do that, so at least 3 bot games, if not 4, and you'll be seeing a heavy focus on AD with Infinity Edge, Bloodthirster, Blade of the Rune King, Phantom Dancer. Those are all pretty standard on Draven. He scales very, very, very well with AD, and he gets a good chunk of AD per level. 3.5 AD per level, that's good. That's damn good. But yeah, that's really it, guys. So don't forget to leave comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think. Other than that, my name has been Shadowswalm, and as always, I will talk to you all next time.